You have your ticket? Oh, you don't have one? No problem, my friend. Just hit the subscription button below. Come on in. Greetings, everyone. DFG Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys. I just want to follow up with you on the book and give you, I guess, my book report on relations in terms of how they occurred. Not relations, I guess, the situation, how the situation occurred in Black Wall Street or Greenwood, Oklahoma, right and next to Tulsa, but how the incident happened, and pretty much bring about some clarity, because I know this is a big conversation right now, especially as it relates to ADOS. I know in my last video I said ADS, but it's ADOS. So for all of those individuals out there who are leading that charge, I guess you might say, the Antonio Moores, the Yvette Cornells, and several others. In all due respect, I apologize for screwing that up on the last video. Now, that being said, I want to get a couple of things straight before I get into this story. Is America a nation that has embraced bigotry, racial bigotry? Is America a nation that embraced the institution of slavery? As they say, America's first sin, first original sin, which, okay, I can get emotional. I'm not going to get emotional, though. But is America a country that has violated and destroyed lives, of the Aboriginal people, copper color, Hebrews, Native American people here? Has America been as equally vicious and violent, to those few slaves who came from Africa here? Has America been racist towards, I'm going to use the term that they used a long time ago. In the early 1900s, okay, Italians and Irish were also considered to be niggers. Now, I know some of you guys may not like me saying that, but I don't give a shit if you like it or not. It's just a fact. You were grafted in later on, into your whitendom. You know what I'm saying? You became white later on, according to the individuals from Spain and France and the United Kingdom or England who came here long before your people, came here. When you were considered niggers as well. Okay, so but you were more indentured servants. You did not have to deal with the racial bigotry. Your bigotry was more ethnic related. Okay, they just looked down on you guys because of the regions that you came from. And not only that, but the Irishman, for example, as you heard me say earlier, it was an Irishman who actually came up with the idea of the Ku Klux Klan. Do your history. It was Irish. There were Scottish Irish. Let me say it right. There were Scottish Irish. There were 6 in the beginning, and then when President they were growing and harassing people and doing things in the late 1870s, and then President Grant, for the most part, put the army on their asses and ran them back underground, and then they died out, only to later reappear, as you guys heard me talking about, from a guy by the name of William Simmons, I think this is his last name, who got it going again after the Birth of a Nation, Griffith's movie, with the support of the Simmons guy that I mentioned, and the guy that I talked about on yesterday too. So one of them was a Methodist, as you remember, evangelist, and the other one was a Baptist preacher. And they pretty much brought it back from underground, and not only using the Birth of a Nation, as their platform, the movie, to justify, the Klan and keeping, black people, so-called black people, Negroes, or colors, whatever they were calling my ancestors back in that time, to keep them, in check uh, through mass intimidation, lynching, maiming, raping men and women, feathering them, um, and probably any other kind of atrocity, maiming them that you can think of. That's what they were doing. All right. Now let's get up to date. So now I say that to you because I want to make sure that as I tell you this story, I don't want anybody to confuse that I'm trying to whitewash racism or trying to marginalize what happened, in Greenwood, Oklahoma. Absolutely not. But I'm not going to lie. I am not going to, create a narrative to push, a certain agenda around, what happened. Okay, if you're looking for that kind of bullshit, you might want to go find Jason Black and some of them other guys out there who are, who will tell you some of the story, but they're going to tell you their version of the story, and really, based off of what I've heard them say, shady at best, bullshit, at the worst. Okay, so here we go. So Dick Rowland, they called him Diamond Dick, but Dick Rowland was a 20-year-old shoe shine boy. Okay, that was the job title, shoe shine boy, and he shined shoes in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A lot of the white businessmen in Oklahoma would go at lunchtime. They would go to have their shoes shine, and Dick Rowland was very efficient. He did a very good job, and he was very charismatic, had a great personality, and people, they liked him, and they would tip him and tip him well. Sometimes $1, $5, even $10. And back in the early 1900s, 1918, 1920, $20 back then was probably equivalent to, or $10 back then was probably equivalent to $30, $40, $50 in today's money. So they, but Oklahoma had the big oil boom, and they had a lot of, wealthy, men, in Oklahoma during that time, white men and black men too, I might add. Okay, so let's get on up to what happened. What actually happened was there was an elevator operator, and I think her name was Sarah Payne. She was 17 years old, and according to many, her and Dick Rowland, who they called Diamond Dick because of diamonds, that diamond ring he had, were in a relationship. They were dating, but of course it was a secret relationship because back at that time it was taboo for a black man and a white female, to be dating. But according to legend, they were dating. All right, and what happened was that she was the elevator operator. At lunchtime, he would use, not at lunchtime, but when he needed to use the restroom, he would use that elevator because they only had one elevator in the building where he was working as a shoe shine boy that they could use, or he could use. And so whenever he got on the elevator, he would see her, and whatever was going on between them two in terms of, I guess maybe that was their meeting place. I can't say for sure. But on this particular day, May 30th, 1921, Dick happened to be getting on the elevator, and he stumbled. And when he stumbled, he fell onto her, and he stepped on her toe. And she just so happened to have an ingrown toenail and went to screaming and hitting on him. And then he grabbed her to defend himself from her hitting on him. And at that particular time, the elevator door opened up. And in came, not in came, but there were some white patrons who saw that. And they were highly pissed, the fact to see this black man with his hands on this white female. And of course, she, hollered out she was being assaulted back, by him. And so in his panic, Diamond Dick ran, a mile back home. And then a day or so later, about three days later, the police found him walking the streets where he lived. And they arrested him, and they brought him back to the jailhouse. When they brought him to the jailhouse, by then had investigated what happened. Sarah Payne said that he did not rape her; it was just an assault, and she didn't even want to press charges. But for his safety, the sheriff decided to keep him locked up in jail until his day in court. and until they can at least investigate the situation, is the way they were saying it, okay? And so once they had him in the building secured, the newspaper, one of the two newspapers in the city, one of the editors used Dick's incarceration and the incident with Sarah to exploit it and to drive to be able to drive and sell his newspaper, because his paper was struggling. So he sensationalized it, the incident, and got everybody riled up, exaggerated, the story, made the story sound as though, this man had, tried to assault, this particular female. Well, later on that evening, the word got out in the black community that a white mob was going to come to the jail later on that night and take Dick out and, and lynch him. Well, when the black men in Greenwood heard this, about 40, 50 of them, they grabbed their guns and they went up to the jailhouse where Dick was being held, and they pretty much stood out in front of the jailhouse. And when the whites came later on that evening, they pretty much told them, you guys need to go on home because you're not getting this guy. Now, the sheriff had already promised these guys that he wouldn't let anything happen, to Dick. He had deputies up there, had Dick up on the top floor, in the building. So he was pretty confident that he would be able to keep anybody from harming Dick. But unfortunately, a year earlier, a white man and woman had robbed and killed a taxi driver in Tulsa. And an angry mob had come to the jail, taken that white guy, took him out into the woods, forced him out, broke him out of jail, took him out in the woods, and they hung him. And everyone in the city knew about that, including the black, citizens of Greenwood. And so that's why the blacks were there, because they wanted to make sure that the same fate that happened to this guy's name was Roy Belton, the white guy. He was 18 years old. They wanted to make sure that Dick did not suffer the same fate that Roy had suffered, okay? And so in the turmoil that evening, when the whites came and saw all these black men with guns, they started arguing, and someone fired a shot, and at the end of the evening, not the end of the evening, but about a few seconds, 10 white men were dead and 2 black men were dead. 10 white, 2 blacks. Well, you can imagine shit hit the fan at that point. So the whites ran and, home, got their guns, went to the armory, tried to get guns from the armory that was there. Couldn't get many from there. But the long and the short of it, the whites went into Greenwood that night and they started shooting out, having a shootout. Black was shooting at them. They were shooting at the blacks. And what they did, as they were going through the whites, there were a lot more whites in Tulsa than they had blacks in Greenwood. And not only did the whites go into Greenwood shooting, and firing back and forth between the two races, but the whites were looting, the homes and burning down the buildings. And ultimately, and I know I said in my other video it was 35 businesses, really it was 191 black businesses were destroyed. Also in that rioting, 1,200 plus homes were destroyed, and about 12,000, people of color, black Aboriginal people, were, more or less left homeless in all the chaos. And that shooting and that event went on for about that rest of that night and the following day. And it finally took the National Guard to come in and bring about quiet and peace. But by then, black schools were burned down, businesses were burned down, churches were burned down, even the movie theater was burned down. And the final count there, as far as the shooting and killing, was they estimated about 50 whites were killed, and the number varies with blacks from 75 as high as 300. Some even say more than that in terms of black deaths and all of that violence. And so ultimately it was squashed. And Dick, to my knowledge, Dick Rowland is still lived to be a ripe old age. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that they got him. At least there's no record that I'm aware of where he was, actually hung or executed or killed or anything. But that's pretty much the story of, Black Wall Street. So they were wrong for rioting and looting and killing and destroying a very prosperous community. But and they did do that. Talking about the whites. But at the same time, I just want you to understand too that there were victims on both sides. But that's pretty much how it started, and that's the story. Okay? Thank you for listening, guys. DFG, talk to you later. Goodbye.